Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and welcome back to the CoffeeCast ProCast. Tonight, I am going to be featuring a bunch of games out of WhiteRa's Korean ladder pack. So I actually, once again, I was explaining this before I went ahead and went live here. I have no idea who's playing, and just look at this name right here. I have no idea who that is. Before I start the game, I don't even know what races are being played. I mean, obviously I know WhiteRa, who's going to be Mini-Q. I know WhiteRa is going to be ProCast, but I have no idea who his opponent is going to be, what race his opponent is going to be. So I'm just kind of going through the replay pack that I downloaded, picking out a random one or two that's large enough of a file, long enough of a game time. Pretty much just not 5 minutes long or so, which there actually are a couple of those. So we're going to have WhiteRa spawning at the top right corner here on, I believe, Entombed Valley. I'm sorry if I have that wrong. I actually have not played much ladder this season because I've been so incredibly busy with school and the CoffeeCast. And on the bottom left side, we have our Blue Zerg player. I believe that's about as close to his name as I'm going to get. At least that properly describes what he is playing and what color he is. So, once again, I apologize for any informities that I am going to have to be giving to these Korean players, as I have no idea how to read that. It's like a life goal to learn a little bit of Korean there. We are going to be having the fairly standard gateway into the assimilator, and, I mean, just 13 gate, 14, 15 assimilator, absolutely nothing new out of our ProDOS player in WhiteRa there. Down here on the bottom side, we are going to have the 16 pool coming up. Once again, as a Zerg player, you're always going to want to go ahead and get the spawning pool before you get your expansion. Otherwise, the ProDOS can really easily just lay down a pylon back here, which makes it so Zerglings can't get us around very easily. Lay down a couple of cannons, and it becomes just a real nasty position to find yourself in. And WhiteRa just going to steal these 5 minerals and skedaddle on out. Just going to be a little bit annoying there. Do have the first zealot on the way. Not a big deal. Once again, I love how WhiteRa is chrono boosting out these probes and not this zealot. I really like that. Just trying to get as much of an economy as he can possibly get. You'll see a lot of players chrono boosting out their gateways in that early game, just to, you know, kind of play it safe, just to not feel icky. One thing I do want to note, WhiteRa is not Forge fast expanding. I mean, that's absolutely insane in the PvZ matchup to not Forge fast expand. It's just actually kind of hitting me now. And, I mean, that's just something that you're always going to see out of a ProDOS player. And this is why I chose to do WhiteRa's games tonight, is the fact that he'll do things that are not standard. Once again, he's not Forge fast expanding. I can't tell you the last time I've seen a PvZ other than mine where I forgot to Forge fast expand that hasn't been utilized. So it does look like WhiteRa might actually be looking to do a little bit of damage here. I don't know how much he'll be able to do, as Queens will be out fairly shortly. Zerglings, of course, could pop out at any given moment. However, no Zerglings on the field yet. This one Queen is the only attacking unit on the field, and we actually do have a Zealot and a Stalker on the way down as well. There's the Lings. I knew there had to be some Lings somewhere. So it does look like the Lings are going to be coming across the field. Then actually, WhiteRa really has nothing to defend with. I mean, he has this one Stalker now. That's kind of a nice little timing for that Stalker to be coming out. But actually, ooh, nice little micro there. They're not just going to be trying to run the Stalker away. 295 movement speed on both of those units. So now they're going to really be doing that. There is a Zealot and a Stalker once again down here harassing this natural expansion. It's not going to do too much, and it actually looks like this Zealot might indeed lose his life. He is not faster than those Zerglings. A shame to be that Zealot for Ire today. Zerglings are just kind of dodging around here. There is a sentry on the high ground, however. So these Zerglings aren't really going to be able to get in. That chrono boost, pardon me, not the chrono boost, the force field, not the forge. My words are just all jumbled tonight. That force field could have gone down on that ramp to prevent any sort of Zergling run by into that main base. And it looks like WhiteRa going to leave just enough room for his units to slip through right here and put him on hold position, and going to completely deny any sort of scouting. More Zerglings being rallied up across the field towards this pace. It looks like our blue Zerg player is looking to do a little bit of damage here. I don't know how effective it's going to be, especially now that this warp gate is up. However, this gateway is indeed going to go down, dropping a force field on top of that building right before it falls. And now actually the Zerglings managing to push through that first Stalker on the wall here and getting straight to the base. Going to be able to take out one sentry, but I don't think they're going to be able to do too much more, as once again, we do have another sentry on the field. Go ahead. Start fortunately off. One Zealot could really take care of this. And using actually all of these probes as well, just to be safe, just make sure he doesn't lose anything extra than he really has to. Has lost that one gateway, but I don't really feel like that's going to be a big deal at all. And really look at this. He pulled all his probes down this way, closer to these mineral patches. Just goes ahead and starts mining for that mineral patch. Gonna lose one extra unit at the very end there. Kind of a shame that that unit did have to die. But once again, don't feel like that's going to be too big of a deal for WhiteRa. Did lose a little bit in that counterattack, though. That's kind of the risk of going ahead and not doing a Forge Fast Expand, taking the risk to try to do a little bit of damage of your own. But a lot of the time that risk will be well worth it, as you'll catch your Zerg opponent off guard, maybe be able to do a little bit of damage yourself, get a few drone kills. In this case, we do see that a couple of probes have died, but I believe that was just the scout, and there was one probe over here earlier trying to make a building of some sort that never really got going. Gonna go ahead and take his third gas geyser down at his natural expansion, continuing to chrono boost out probe, trying not to miss too many of them there. He's gonna miss one with that chrono boost on the next, but just gonna kind of transition into a pretty standard game here. WhiteRa, you can see with all these chrono boosts on his probes, staying very, very well up with his harvester count. And this is another thing I love WhiteRa do. This is not standard. Pushing out with this, little army, not that standard. I mean, you have a couple sentries in there, yeah, that's nice. Some zealots do a little bit of damage, but it's not like this is something you'll see, every pro player do. This isn't something that Huck does all the time or anything, or MC even. It's just something that WhiteRa likes to do because it can work. And he likes doing all these little things. In fact, he's actually going to be able to get here right on time that this third base is going up. And I'm going to say that that is not an accident at all. That is absolutely on purpose, getting here as soon as this third base finishes up. I don't know if you knew about that before. We do have a Zerglin counterattack coming over to the natural expansion of our Protoss hero. It does look like a few units are going to be warped in to defend that base, however. And this base is going to go down. There's nothing that our Zerg player can really do about it, as there are enough sentries here to go ahead and just force field off this ramp. Our Zerg player is going to be maybe in a little bit of pain. Could go ahead and try to just reestablish that expansion, however. There is going to be this pylon here that's going to be able to scout that, though. And now we're kind of at this awkward moment where the Zerg doesn't have a third base. But he's not really all that weak. He's a little bit behind the supply count, but his economy not doing too bad. He has some attacking units on the field, and he can either choose to go ahead and go for a counterattack or try to expand once again. Either way, though, I don't really think that he's going to be able to do all that much. As once again, if he decides to counterattack, these forces could either fall back and help defend, or go ahead, come down, and re-kill any sort of expansion. And this just is not going to turn out well for the Zerg player if he does indeed decide to try to push in here. A couple of cannons even going up on the high ground. And it actually looks like the Zerg army is going to be flanked by the Protoss army coming in from the back side. This could actually do quite a nice little bit of damage to the Zerg army. But no, it looks like the Zerg army actually going to try to engage this purposefully, perhaps. I can't exactly tell what either of these players are thinking right now. He's going to be forced to engage, though, because with all of these sentries here, he could just be force fielded off, have the Zealots get free hits anyways. So it's going to be kind of stuck right here unless he wants to fall out. I really don't agree with the Zerg player trying to just stick around here. And indeed, there he goes, falling out, knowing that he can't really do all of that much. Just want to point out these overlords here. I really like this overlord placement. Just nice and safe, tucked between these two pieces of destructible debris. Not really worth the effort to go in and get those. If there was Aryans on the field, perhaps. However, there are not. Just a nice little thing that this Zerg player does. Not a huge thing. It does look like WhiteRa once again going to be coming up here and engaging, trying to pick up a couple of free roaches, and indeed he will get a couple of free roaches. Looks like he got 3 or 4 along the way. You can see all the nice little blood splatters. They make a beautiful little painting, and there's even one extra kill just because WhiteRa can, because he is a boss. I really like the choice of going Immortals by WhiteRa. In fact, I mean, Robotics is always kind of just that little safe choice. And especially against Zerg players, Immortals so effective. It just allows such a nice counterattack versus these roaches. And if your opponent doesn't go roaches, well, you can still use that robotics to go ahead and get either Colossus out, depending on what he has, or you can just use it to get observers. And then now we see that there is blink fairly shortly for the Stalkers here. It looks like we're once again going to be having both these players going in different directions at one time. Zerglings are going to be coming around. I don't know if they're going to take out the back rocks currently to try to go up the main. But it does look like actually going to pull those Zerglings back and use whatever he can to defend. WhiteRa pushing up this ramp, going to be kind of committing here. Nope, falling back now. But once again, with the number of sentries in this army, he can kind of choose where he wants to engage, even if it is going to be on creep, because those force fields are going to keep the Zerg units off of him for a long enough period of time for him to just kind of do the damage that he needs to do, or be able to fall back. It doesn't look like WhiteRa really wants to push this. His Zealots are behind all the Stalkers, so those are doing absolutely no damage. And even for the Immortals for a little bit there, we're not shooting whatsoever. Now finally blinking back, but I don't know, it might be a little bit too late. There are quite a few roaches on the field here. He's doing quite a bit of damage, however. There are a lot of Stalkers in this back line, which do that extra damage to all of the buildings, but I don't think it's going to be enough, as there are quite a few roaches here, throwing even down transfuses on those spine crawlers just to make sure that they stay alive long enough. The Stalkers blinking up in here, really committed to this attack. The blink has cooled down now so they can get off this bridge, but they're not going to. They're actually going to be blinking backwards and trying to pick off a little bit of tech. I do not like this decision at all, having to wait for his blink cooldown once again, and the roach running up, picking off a couple of extra Stalkers. I really feel WhiteRa overcommitted by blinking up into this base. He had a couple of opportunities where he could have fallen back, especially right away after, right when that engagement begun, when he was, when his Zealots were caught behind the Stalkers. I really don't feel like he should have run up that ramp and engaged in that case. However, he did, and what's done is done. Going to be trying to be keeping up with his Immortal production. Jumping in here with these Stalkers once again, not actually blinking all the way back, and losing once again a couple of Stalkers due to a little bit of a missed micro error right there. WhiteRa just seems to be falling behind just a little bit in this game. He needs to make sure, I mean, really what he needs to do right now, there we go, take a fourth base. This is a third base, pardon me, a very, very late third base out of WhiteRa. This is at the 16:30 mark. You normally have those finished around the 14-minute mark, and I mean finished in mining already. So a really late base out of WhiteRa. And the Zerg player, I guess I just realized that I've been focusing a lot on WhiteRa. I should mention the Zerg player doing a very, very nice job with his tech. Gonna go ahead and lay down this Hydralisk den and start getting Hydralisk out. Beautiful, beautiful counter to what WhiteRa has right now, as he has nothing really to deal with these light units. He has the Immortal out, which obviously good against the Roaches, but no Colossus to fry away at the Hydralisk, no High Templar, no Archon. WhiteRa might find himself in quite a bit of trouble fairly shortly here if he doesn't try to find something to engage these Hydralisks with, or just try to kill them off very, very soon before they can really amass any sort of numbers. Trapping a couple roaches up on the ramp with force fields, a nice play by WhiteRa. Really going to need to thin the numbers as much as he possibly can to be able to win this engagement. And actually, that Observer going to be killed by the Overseer with the Hydralisk in his mixture. And some of the Stalkers on the high ground going to go ahead and start wailing away at the units on the low ground. However, the units on the low ground can't range up there, as there was that Overseer on the high ground. Some Stalkers did come around the left side here, but they're going to be easily picked off by some of those Hydralisks and Roaches, and ending up having to blink away in the end of that engagement. It does look like WhiteRa slowly being whittled down. The armies are rather comparable now in size, and that is going to be kind of bad for a Protoss player, as the Zerg going to be able to remacro his army so quickly, as we do see up here 10 roaches were just on the way, and here comes one round of reinforcing roaches. We can even see more roaches and another overlord being rallied up in this general direction, taking out yet another gateway. So the production power of WhiteRa beginning to take a hit as well, down to just 6 gateways and a robotics facility, and probably just cannot pump out units fast enough. We do have all the units sitting over here. Might be able to pick off a pylon if they so desire, if there was something to spot the high ground. That would not be too big of a deal, however. We do have more roaches in the middle of the field. No fourth base yet for a Zerg player. It seems like he's feeling pretty good about where he is right now, but he's just not quite in a position to completely deal with WhiteRa. There is a lot up here, and it's going to be rather difficult for a Zerg player to go ahead and break that. I feel like if he just kind of pushes in, though, he'll lose a lot of units, yes, but I feel like he'll actually come out on top in that engagement. He's just very, very scared to go ahead and push up these ramps, as the sentries can just decimate his army if he is caught a little bit off guard there. Does not want that to happen whatsoever. Looks like we're going to be seeing our next little attack. Nope, actually falling back before even anything ramping up there. 11 Hydralisks on the way. That is once again exactly what we need to see out of our Zerg player. I would actually love to see him set up a creep highway, but no, actually going to be circumventing those ramps completely using a Doom drop. That is going to be a beautiful and effective strategy out of our Zerg player. Going to just probably, I would imagine, drop up in this third base area, as it looks like it would be the most vulnerable. But may just try to go all the way in to the main base just to go ahead and circumvent any sort of defenses whatsoever. Going to be flying straight over this cannon. It looks like WhiteRa is going to be somewhat prepared for it. Needs to blink forward and start trying to take out some of these units. But no, it's going to be a little bit too late, dropping these units all over the place. They might be coming in a little bit too slowly, though. WhiteRa's positioning is fairly good in this case. There are a couple of gunnery and shields being popped. Force shields are not going to be that useful. And it looks like WhiteRa actually has beautiful positioning for this engagement. Some of the Hydras coming up from the backside here, going to take out another gateway. However, I really feel WhiteRa is going to come out ahead on this battle. It's kind of hard to see with all of these overlords here. And indeed, look at the slaughter fest that is this. I've never seen blood-soaked ground like this in Starcraft before. That was a lot of units dying right there. And actually, a lot of overlords might die here as well if these overlords are not evacuated fairly quickly. Gonna go ahead and start laying down creep just to be safe. I don't know exactly what our Zerg player is doing, but he needs to move these overlords right now, as 3 roaches is not going to be enough to deal with this Protoss ball. We do have more overlords on the way. Oh my goodness. Needs to run away with these overlords, even losing his maximum supply cap at this point. Running, but it's not going to quite be enough. If there was a single observer, he could get up here and start taking out more of those overlords, but there is not. Instead, he could run over here and start taking out some of these Hydras. However, the Hydras are very, very good against these gateway units. Actually, WhiteRa might be overextending just a little bit here. He's going to pick off that overlord. Might want to consider blinking away. He's taking, once again, quite a bit of damage. There we go, blinking the very wounded stalkers to the back. Going to go ahead and circumvent all the way around to try to get away from this army. I don't know if it's going to be enough, because it does look like Zerg player running over to intercept it, finally getting our robotics bay down on the field, but it might be a little bit late. Oh, WhiteRa, blink up into the high ground. You cannot engage this army from where you are right now. Actually, is going to go ahead and engage. I don't quite, there we go. There's some reinforcing units from the top. Is going to be able to clean up what is left of this Zerg army down here. Kind of a close call, though. If WhiteRa did not have those extra stalkers, actually might have found himself in a little bit of a predicament. A lot of Zerglings coming out onto the field for our Zerg player. However, with the addition of those Colossus fairly shortly, Zerglings not going to be the best counter to these Stalkers. It's going to be kind of a close call for our Zerg player, but I really feel like he's losing momentum in this game now that WhiteRa has that third base up and established. Unfortunately, these roaches do have that burrow ability. Going to be burrowing. WhiteRa won't be able to attack the full observer because he does not have an observer over his army right now. But just using some burrow and unburrow might go to be a little bit annoying here. Let the Zerglings take the brunt of the attack. But there are just too many Stalkers here for the Zerg player. And just rallying more and more roaches. He really, really needs to fall back and just gather up his forces while he still can. He's losing so many extra units. And there is just the lead from our Zerg player. Very, very well played by WhiteRa in this game to go ahead and secure that victory. I really feel like that pivotal point was when the Zerg player tried to drop onto that that awkward little ledge between the second base and the third base. I loved the idea of a Doom drop. I just feel like he dropped in a very, very bad spot because he couldn't get all of his units out at one time and dropped right on top of those units. WhiteRa just killed them off one by one. It was no problem for him. Really able just to clean up that mess very, very quickly. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Coffee Break, and I thank you for joining me here on the CoffeeCast. I'm going to go ahead and take a brief break as I do get our next little set of games for me to choose from up and running. In the meantime, enjoy some music.